Well, good morning and welcome to Thought for the Day. Well, you've probably said it, you've probably heard it said, haven't you? Big boys don't cry, or big girls don't cry. And I guess as a message to a child breaking into a hissy fit over a toy that's been lost or broken, or even a rule that's been enforced, it's probably quite helpful to learn that message of just having to be a bit stronger inside. But when big boys don't cry gets turned into grown men don't cry, or grown women don't cry, I think it starts to be a slightly more dangerous message, and it's particularly dangerous in our relationship with God. I discovered quite early in my Christian life as a young man the incredible joy of tears in worship when I stand before God, maybe singing, maybe in silence, probably with others, but letting go of all the things that don't satisfy, all the things I've wanted, the things I've longed for that may have come or may not have come, but either way have not satisfied. And standing empty-handed, but with heart lifted up to a God who really loves me. And when the tears come in those moments, it's incredibly precious. And I expect there are many of you too who have had that experience in worship. It's an experience to be treasured. It's a wonderful time. But I think there's another form of tears in our relationship with God, and a lesson that maybe takes a little longer to learn, and that's the tears of prayer. I'm sure I've mentioned before that the psalm that says that when we come to God in prayer, we pour out our hearts to God. And sometimes in our hearts there is sadness, deep sadness. And so sometimes pouring our hearts out to God involves crying to Him. And yet, if we're told that grown men don't cry, we think, well, in that case, grown men certainly don't cry before God. So when the impulse to cry comes, either we turn away from God, turn the sadness into anger, frustration, turn it in on ourselves, or we somehow shut it down and say prayers to God that don't really engage with that sadness in our heart. But if we're going to follow in the steps of Jesus, then to say that real men don't cry, grown men don't cry, is to betray something of what He was. As He approached Jerusalem towards the last few days before the crucifixion, He looked down on the city and He wept over the city. He wept over that city, the city that had experienced God in so special ways over the years, and yet had turned its back on God. A city that was now going to witness its almost the greatest rebellion ever, as they would shout for the Son of God to be crucified. Jesus looked at that city and He wept. The night before, he'd been praying in the garden, praying in anguish, and the anguish was so great that his sweat, Luke records for us, was like drops of blood. And apparently that's a medical condition that can occur in times of great anguish. Jesus shed blood at the crucifixion before He went to the cross, in the anguish of that prayer. And because He was in anguish, He prayed even more earnestly. Jesus knew that tears and prayer go together. They're not anathema to each other. They're not things that should be separated. Because real love is always costly. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago who talked just about the release of finally being able to cry about things that made her sad. Finally being able to cry to God. And maybe the deepest prayers are always prayed with tears. Because real love is always costly. If you really love someone, then something that happens to them will cause you grief too. If they turn away from you, if they walk away from you, that causes even more grief. Real love is always costly. And if real love is costly, then there will be tears in a relationship of love. There will be tears before God as we ask why. How long, O Lord? The psalmist cries out again and again. How long do we have to go through this? I'm sure some of those how longs were said with tears. So as you feel, as we all do sometimes, that welling up of tears in your heart, don't turn them away from God. Don't feel you've got to banish them before you come to God. But let them pour out. Let the pouring out of tears sometimes be an outpouring of your heart to a God who loves you, a God who loves you enough to die for you. Well, God bless you this Friday morning. I hope you have a great day of walking with the Lord and keeping in step with His Spirit. I'll speak to you soon.